Welcome to the Tuesday live stream. How's it going? How is everybody doing? Yeah. Today is Tuesday, August 11th. I decided to go live today because it's the 2-year anniversary of my first live stream. I went live August 11th, 2024. It was actually a Sunday afternoon. I remember it very well. It was kind of like a last minute decision after years of thinking about it and being too scared to do it. And I had one former friend, who actively discouraged me from doing it. Crazy. If you want to do, if you listen, are you thinking about starting a YouTube channel or creating content on any of the platforms? Don't do it. Do it. Listen, let's talk a little bit about the experience. I would actually love to have this conversation because I think about it a lot, and I think that it is in parallel to a lot of different things that we want to do and never quite get around to doing. And I think, honestly, web design, web development, software engineering, front-end development, whatever it is that you're into or whatever it is that you like, I think that course culture, I don't know what else to call it, but course culture is similar in that we watch a lot of courses because we tell ourselves a story that we're not quite ready yet. We need to watch another course. We need to learn another thing. And there's all these things around us that do anything but get us to open up VS Code and just build something. I'm right. I know I'm right. I'm pretty sure I'm right. And so who tells us that in development? Could it be any number of YouTube channels that are funnels for, a course, the 50 things you need to learn in order to be a front-end developer? And what a coincidence, I have a course to teach you how to do it. Never once encouraging you to just open up VS Code, index.html, style.css, script.js. The 3 things the browser renders natively, that you don't need a library or a framework or Node or a package manager or a compiler or anything, and you can still build a perfectly good website. And guess what? You are learning how the browser and the internet actually works at the same time, which is not to say that frameworks and libraries and Node and all of those things aren't still things that you need to know. Of course you do, but why? But I would much rather you see, I would much rather see you just get started and just start building something without worrying about all those other things. I want you to have the feedback loop of seeing the results in the browser, and you can do that pretty simply in front end. You really wanted to tell yourself a story about why you're not ready to start a YouTube channel, just get sucked into that part of YouTube. And they're happy to tell you, oh, you need this camera, you need this piece of technology, you need this tech, you need these lights, you need this microphone, you need this setup, you need this background, you need whatever. They're happy to sell you products, get commissions on affiliate links, keep you coming back for more, sucking you in, telling you all the things that you need to know in order to start a YouTube channel. No. I'm here to tell you, audiences are very forgiving. Very, very forgiving. Very, very forgiving. Uh-oh. I'm not seeing, the chat is telling me, okay, let me pop out the chat here. The chat is telling me that there's problems today. I don't see any problems on my end. Hang on one second. Let me get the chat wired up. Everything on my end says that 'tis okay, that the signal's fine. But let's see here. Always listen to the chat. Okay. Was this a trick to get me to stop talking? I think this might have been a trick. Osloy is here. Osloy was first in the chat today. Welcome. Go Elmo is here. Our mod in the chat, Monique Robinson, is also here. Welcome. Monique and Malik were two people who found me. I think I had less than 500 subscribers. They've been with me a long time. I really appreciate them. Stampsack is here. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I mean, I feel like I'm saying it exactly the way that it's spelled. So please tell me if I should be saying that differently. Um, and let's see here. Stampsack is asking, may I ask, besides HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, is there any other programming language that you like? I mean, I like Vue.js because I used Vue for a long time at my last job. Now, to be clear, I used Vue inside of a Laravel Composer app. So we didn't build these independent Vue components with routing and all, when you think of a JavaScript framework like React or Angular or Vue, I think that people probably don't um, people think of something much different than how I was using it at St. Thomas. It was part of our front end code base and it was used inside of a Laravel app, so there wasn't any routing. There wasn't any, what are some of the other things that people commonly use with Vue? I don't even know. It was just a different setup inside of how I used it, and I did like it. I don't love Laravel. I know Laravel is wildly popular. It's not my favorite. It feels overly complex to me. However, um, I think in my situation at St. Thomas, for the code base that we had, it was just an over engineering of what it is that we actually needed. And I never had a way to smoothly transition out of that. I was kind of stuck with it and I had to work with it. And for many years, it was fine. But when it broke or when we had to update Node, it was a massive pain in the ass. But I don't know, it would last a couple of days. I would get everything back online and it was fine and we would move forward. So, I like Python because Python, if you're a front end developer, I absolutely think it's worth it to learn Python for two reasons. Number one, if you work someplace where you are migrating content from like, let's say a legacy content management system to an updated content management system, Python is great because often your content creators will have to go through this exercise of copying and pasting out of the old CMS to organize those pages and that content. If you know a little bit of Python, you can scrape data from just legacy HTML pages from an old CMS. You could organize that in a spreadsheet, a CSV, or maybe in some JSON. And then if you're working in a new updated CMS, there could be like an API where you could import content, things like that. So I think it's worth it to learn a little Python as a front-end developer because you could really help with like content migration from old platforms to new platforms. The second reason I think it's helpful is every time we updated a school or a college at St. Thomas, we always had these long lists of 301 redirects that had to be implemented in AWS. And we were very diligent about checking all of the 301 redirects. And at the beginning of that process, when I first started there, that was a manual process. I remember we did a huge migration for www.stthomas.edu, and the entire team had to come in on a Saturday, and we had to divide up hundreds of 301 redirects and click every single link to make sure it had been correctly implemented on AWS. Well, then I learned Python and they could give me the list of redirects and I could just run a Python script and make sure that I got a returned 301 redirect. And maybe a handful would be wrong and they would fix them and I would run the script again and it was like a 10-minute task. So I think Python is great if you're a front-end developer. Those are the two reasons that I used Python, and it was wildly helpful. It really helped our front-end process. So for what it's worth, I think that that's a really good thing to learn. I don't love Java, even though I understand why it's important. I think it's absolutely worth it to learn MySQL, not because I'm super database girl, but if you ever decide that you're going to work in WordPress or do anything with building WordPress themes, you know, WordPress is like the OG full stack app, in my opinion. And if you decide to work in WordPress, you are inevitably going to be doing WordPress migrations, which is front end and back end. It's just the way it is. And if you do any freelancing, if you work any place where you have to do a migration and you have a really, really big database, some of the GUI tools out there to help with that aren't going to be able to handle a really big database. And it doesn't even have to be that big to overwhelm some of those tools. So if you can learn a little bit of MySQL, be comfortable logging into MySQL, looking at tables, um, checking things like the home and the site URL, things like that after you do migrations, updating, because WordPress uses absolute links, not relative links. So anytime you do a migration from maybe your local environment to a remote environment, you're going to have to update all of those URLs. And that stuff's a lot easier to do if you know a little MySQL. And just in general, I think you should be comfortable importing and exporting databases. And let's face it, WordPress is really, really popular. And a lot of people do WordPress. I started my career doing WordPress, and I think that I'm going to be revisiting WordPress. I'm kind of like ready to revisit it and see if um, I am, I don't know what I'm trying to say right now. I was just so sick of it when I decided I didn't want to work in WordPress anymore, and I'm kind of like, I'm like better at this. I'm a better engineer now than I was 8 or 9 years ago. Maybe this was a good time to revisit WordPress. So, um, and StampSack says, well, let me see here. Let me just go down the list. Yeah, Osley is reacting to something that I said earlier, which is just make something. Absolutely. Just start typing into text edit if you don't have VS Code, text edit or Notepad. So it looks like everything is okay today. If there are issues with the, what do you call it? The bit rate, the stream rate, the stream health, I'm not seeing anything on the back end of YouTube Studio, but it looks like it's okay. So let's see here. Yeah, thanks for letting me know about that. StampSack says, if it were me, I might like front end, back end, and the database a little bit. Yeah. Okay, Malik says everything's okay right now. Samsack says, I'm trying to learn new languages by studying online and on YouTube, and also buying books from bookstores to read and try out, and I'm a creator on TikTok. That's good. That's good. Send me your TikTok. I'll take a look at it. I don't spend a lot of time on TikTok, but I glance every once in a while. StampSack says, but Python is a trending language that can do almost anything, and it's a language I like and love very much. I think if you have a strong interest in front end, and I could pick one back end, if I could pick two kind of back endy things, it would be Python and MySQL, just for those two reasons that I outlined. WordPress and Python has a lot of great uses when it comes to checking redirects, checking really any status of any link, and scraping web data. It's powerful. It saved my team a lot of time when I could do that. So, and Osloy is asking StampSack, what languages, if any, do you already know? I did professional computer languages tutoring for years, so I might have some suggestions. Nice. StampSack also says, I can handle JavaScript reasonably well, similar to Python, although I need to memorize vocabulary and syntax. And Osley says, here, we see the WordPress in its natural habitat. It's midsummer, which means it's time for the annual migration. It's cute. That's like a little, what was the thing in the 80s? The Mutual of Omaha nature shows? That's what that makes it sound like. And StampSack says, I prefer front end and back end aspects because they use simple, less complex languages, are easy to read, and involve some database knowledge. Okay, good. And it looks like the lag is over. Well, anyways, I didn't have, yes, David Attenborough. Nice. David Attenborough. Too funny. All right. Well, I didn't have that much more to say. You guys get the gist. You guys get the gist of what I'm trying to say. I'm obviously very happy that I finally took the plunge and one second here. Hold please. Yeah, you guys get the gist. You guys get the gist. If there's something you want to do, do it. I will say, and I've said this before, and I think it's okay to say it out loud. I hoped that this channel would grow a little bit faster than it has. It's tough to see people grow faster, and it's okay. It takes as long as it takes, right? It takes as long as it takes. The thing about being a smaller channel is that I think it's more normal to grow slower. I think it's the exception for channels to grow really, really fast. I don't think that that's typical results. And when you're small and it takes longer to grow, it gives you more time to figure out how to do things. So I don't think technology is the most important thing about creating content. I mean, our phones are so powerful these days. I think that over time, you develop a personality, you get comfortable with the format, you find tech that you like and works for you. If you feel like you do better work with a lot of tech, great. I went down that road and it turns out that it doesn't matter. You can do a lot with a ring light, which I'm sure you guys can usually see in my glasses. You can do just fine with a ring light and a camera and a laptop and some free software. I bought a Stream Deck, I had gadgets, I had lots of things, and I've actually sold all of those things on eBay because I didn't use them, I didn't need them. They didn't make any difference. They made it worse because it was more stuff for me to keep track of. So anyways, okay. Well, that's that then. So happy anniversary to us. 2 years on YouTube. Here's to many more. Not going anywhere anytime soon. So Osley says, why do you want to grow your YouTube channel? For growth itself, monetization, connecting with people, something else? So, yes, monetization, yes, absolutely. There are incredible opportunities on YouTube to make money. And I think, oh boy, this is going to be a little bit shitty. I think that there are a lot of people creating content on YouTube that, how do I say this? It's kind of garbage. I'm not going to call anybody out, but we've all seen it. There's a lot of crap on YouTube that gets a lot of views. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of views. Those people are making money. It's frustrating to see that, knowing that I come on here week after week after week, like demonstrating real, actual engineering and skill and to not get the views. But I also know that that could be for a lot of reasons. It could be because people just don't like my personality. I've had people straight up tell me that they think that vanilla is pointless. It's an old tech stack. I'm actually going to set front-end development back by even talking about these things. I should be using frameworks and libraries if I really want my channel to grow. I don't know. Maybe they're right. I don't know. I just do what I think is the right thing to do and what I enjoy. And yeah, monetization is part of it. I would love to be influential in the front-end development community because I think I have a lot of experience and I think I have something to contribute. And I enjoy talking about it. I enjoy mentoring new people. I want to encourage new people to get into this. If you're in it and you're having a tough time, I want to help build you up or give you a new way of looking at things or encourage you to keep going. I don't know. Connecting with people for sure. Growth itself, yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say all of these things are reasons for wanting to be here and wanting to grow. So, that answer your question? Stampsack says, actually, I wanted to be a software engineer since I was a kid because I mostly enjoyed playing with computers back then, but I didn't study computer engineering in high school. Yeah, that's fine. That's fair. I always had a interest in computers, but this was not a thing when I was in high school. I graduated from high school in the 90s. So the internet did not, I mean, I think technically the internet existed when I graduated from high school, but I had literally never heard the word internet before. That was not a thing. I didn't know what that was. That was not on my radar until well into the 2000s. So, yeah, so there's that. Okay. Well, here's what I have planned for today. We are going to set aside the Jane Austen database for a couple of weeks because I really want to get back to just doing a nice HTML, CSS, JavaScript landing page. We're actually going to start doing that this weekend. Today, what I want to do is I want to get prepped for going live on LinkedIn on Thursday this week. So at noon on Thursday, that's Central Standard Time, I'm going to go live on LinkedIn and I would like to do, I guess, a presentation of sorts, just showing people how they can use Codex or AI to audit their front end projects. And what we're going to do today is develop that process, which I don't think has to be that complicated. So I started a project literally called Frontend Audit. And let's start just a README and let's define what these parameters are going to be. So we'll call this front end audit. There we go. And what are the things that we want to teach? What would be the things that we would want to audit on a front end project? Let's start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. What else would we want to audit on a front end project? We would probably want to audit accessibility, and also maybe search engine optimization, search engine optimization. And then maybe, I don't want to get too into the weeds. Well, let's stop here. So these, and we are absolutely going to have ChatGPT help us write some of these prompts. That's what we're doing today, is we're going to define what the audit even is. What are we going to ask Codex to do specifically? What are those prompts? Yeah, does that make sense? So let's go ahead and get this committed and start our repo. So we'll get init, git add, git commit, initial commit, and then let's go to the GitHub. Okay. New. Hopefully you can see this. We're just going to call it front end audit. We'll create the repository. And I'll grab these last three things. Okay, and so now we have our repo ready to go. So if we need, I don't think ChatGPT is going to need to read anything here, but if we want ChatGPT to read anything, we can have it do it. And then we'll pick a couple of the projects that we've made on this channel, and we will actually do the audit. So this a little bigger. Okay. So the point of this is to have it audit a front end project. And I feel like I see a lot of people on social media building their own websites, their own front end projects. I don't know if the majority of those projects are vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I don't know if they're wrapped in a framework. I don't know if they're Angular. I have no idea. Let's take the approach that they could be. Let's take the approach that if somebody's going to Claude Code, they're not getting a React app. Let's make an assumption. Okay, so let's write what our assumptions might be here. So this audit assumes, that might not be the best word. We'll say this audit assumes you have a website made with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Maybe your website uses a CSS library like Tailwind or Bootstrap. Okay, I'm at a loss for what else to add. Unable to get absolute URI between README and what? Oh, this is from GitLens. No, just go away. Okay. Why are you bothering me with this? Okay, I'm ignoring that message. So we want to audit the HTML. Okay, what is happening? This is annoying. Manage extension. What am I managing? Dismiss. I honestly never use GitLens, so I'm not sure what the problem is. Audit the HTML for correct. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. I'm getting this very annoying warning from GitLens in VS Code. Please advise. GitLens has had this class of URI path resolution bug before, where it winds up trying to resolve a file path against a malformed or unexpected base URI. Since your repo is perfectly ordinary and the file is simply README, I would treat this as GitLens misbehaving. Okay, so then here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to disable it because I don't have time for this nonsense. Okay, let's... Let's see here. Sometimes it's like turn it off and on again, right? Audit the HTML for correct usage. Okay, I think we're okay. I think we're in the clear. Audit the HTML for correct usage, for correct use of semantic markup. Okay, we're going to keep this broad because we are going to ask ChatGPT to help us write these prompts, right? Audit the CSS for, I don't know, what do you audit CSS for? Maybe specificity, unused CSS, and color, accessibility standards. Okay. JavaScript. What would we audit JavaScript for? You know what? Maybe we should just ask for help. This is starting to feel pointless when I know I'm going to ask for help for this. Okay. So let's just start a new conversation here. I'm starting a repo slash project called Frontend Audit. The purpose is to use Codex to audit a website made with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It assumes it's not a JavaScript framework like React, Angular, or Vue. It may or may not use Tailwind or Bootstrap, or something similar. I see people making websites using Claude or, using Claude or Codex but I have no idea if they're actually getting ... React apps, or if they're vanilla websites, or maybe They're something completely different, like a Laravel app, right? Like a Laravel app. I don't know. I want a series of prompts for any agent that checks HTML, CSS, JavaScript, accessibility, and SEO. Let's do this. Let's commit this, give the repo to ChatGPT, let them know that we at least started this repo. So we'll get add, git, commit, and I'll just say starting the README. Okay. Here's the repo. Let's see what happens. Okay, so this is a good scope for a reusable front-end code review prompt library. Yes, prompt library, not a prompt that assumes a particular, oh, okay. I like this a lot, and I think the repo needs one important thing before HTML, CSS, JavaScript, a project discovery audit setup prompt. Okay, right now your README has the right top level buckets, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, accessibility, and SEO, but I would not immediately tell Codex audit the HTML. First, make the agent figure out what ChatGPT's been using swear words a lot lately. I'm going to sub in the appropriate language. First, make the agent figure out what the heck it has been handed. Because you're right, someone saying Claude built me a website could mean almost anything, right? It could be a static HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Vite with vanilla JavaScript. Oh, good point. Astro is super popular. Astro generating mostly static HTML, Tailwind, Bootstrap, PHP templates like Twig, which I like. I actually like Twig. Laravel and Blade, WordPress, React, Vue, Svelte, and some AI generated Frankenstein pile of dependencies nobody actually needed. And Frontend Audit should deliberately draw a boundary around what it audits. I would structure the project roughly like this. So we have a README and then we have prompts. Project discovery. I love it. HTML audit, CSS audit, JavaScript audit, accessibility audit, SEO audit, and final report. Perfect. This is perfect. So project discovery, this is more than it sounds. The agent should inspect the repo and report things like identify the front-end architecture before performing an audit. Do not modify files. Determine how HTML is produced, how CSS is produced, how JavaScript is loaded and organized, whether a build system exists, whether a CSS framework or library is present, whether a JavaScript framework is present, whether server-side templates generate the HTML, yes. Major third-party dependencies, entry points, and important directories. This audit is intended for websites whose front end is fundamentally HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If the application is primarily React, Vue, Angular, Svelte, or another JavaScript UI framework, stop and report that this audit is outside its intended scope. Yes. Server-side technologies such as PHP, Laravel, Blade, Django templates, Rails templates, or CMS templates do not automatically disqualify the project if the rendered front end can still be evaluated as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Yeah, like what if it was just like a simple PHP templating, which is like what my website does? That would not disqualify it at all. The last indication is key. A Laravel site isn't necessarily outside the scope of your project. If Blade spits out ordinary semantic HTML and you've got CSS and vanilla JavaScript sitting on top of it, your expertise absolutely applies to that front end. You're auditing the front end layer, not necessarily demanding that the entire application be a static site. Then I'd make the individual audits considerably more opinionated. So for HTML, not audit semantic markup, inspect document structure, landmarks, heading hierarchy, native HTML elements versus unnecessary divs and spans, buttons versus links, forms, labels, lists, tables, images, picture, figure, dialogues, details, summary, navigation, valid nesting, duplicate IDs, unnecessary ARIA, yeah, DOM structure that makes CSS and JavaScript unnecessarily complicated. And I'd explicitly say prefer native HTML semantics over ARIA or JavaScript implementations when native HTML provides the required behavior. Yes, yes. That one sentence will catch so much AI generated front end code. You know what I think's happening here? I think we're finding our first agent. Good thing I have a small audience. Nobody will steal my ID because nobody watches me, except for you fine people, of course. But this is why it's good to have a small audience. I can come up with great ideas on stream and not worry that anybody's going to steal my ideas. Okay. So 2, CSS. This one could really be good because AI generated CSS frequently works while being structurally awful. I'd inspect specificity, important tags, excessive nesting, duplicated declarations, duplicated selectors, unused styles, unnecessary resets, magic numbers. What does that mean? Magic numbers. I don't know what that means. Overly rigid dimensions, layout misuse, flex or grid misuse, responsiveness, overflow, overflow, none. When you have a layout issue that you should fix, but you just put a band-aid on it with overflow, or overflow hidden, excuse me, but you know what I mean, overflow hidden. Viewport assumptions, typography, focus styles, prefers reduced motion, hover only interactions, which are generally not accessible, contrast related declarations, CSS that exists only because the HTML structure is poor. And if Tailwind or Bootstrap exists, evaluate the implementation within the conventions of the detected CSS framework. Do not flag framework-generated utility classes merely because equivalent custom CSS could be written. Otherwise, Codex will happily tell someone to rewrite Tailwind as vanilla CSS. I mean, we don't want to do that. I have enough respect for Tailwind to know not to do that. JavaScript. This should be a front-end engineering audit, not ESLint cosplay. Oh, this is a clever way of putting this. I'd look for unnecessary JavaScript, functionality available natively in HTML and CSS, always, always, always. Event listener management, DOM querying, repeated DOM queries, global state, global variables, modules, dependency, okay, blah, blah, blah. One principle deserves to be explicit. Identify JavaScript that exists to compensate for incorrect HTML semantics and recommend fixing the HTML rather than adding additional JavaScript. That is extremely Angela Holden front-end audit. So nice when ChatGPT agrees with me. Oslo is saying magic numbers in code means having a hard-coded number like 6 in the code with no meaning. A way around having a magic number is to use a variable. Oh, got it. Okay. I've never heard it referred to that before. So thank you, Osloy. Learn something new every day. Okay, accessibility. I treat this separately, even though accessibility overlaps with every other category. And I wouldn't frame it as simply find WCAG violations. I'd ask it to distinguish. See, okay, we'll read this, but I have an idea of where I want to go with accessibility just to keep it simple. Code detectable problems from things requiring human testing. For example, Codex can detect missing accessible names, bad labels, invalid ARIA, obvious keyboard problems from event handling, bad landmark usage, missing alt, tab index abuse, focus removal, likely contrast problems, missing reduced motion support. But it cannot honestly certify this website is compliant. So the prompt should forbid that claim. Instead, report potential WCAG level A and AA issues that can reasonably be inferred from the source. Do not claim that the website is WCAG compliant based solely on static code review. Identify items requiring browser, keyboard, screen reader, zoom, contrast, or other manual testing. That makes the project much more credible. SEO. I'd keep this technical on-page SEO, not SEO guru territory. Fair. Audit. If there is a title, a meta description, a canonical tag, robots directives, heading structure, semantic HTML, link text, crawlable navigation, image alt usage where relevant to content, structured data, open graph social metadata, sitemap or robots, internal links, URL structure where observable, duplicate metadata, language declaration, rendering indexability problems, JavaScript only content, performance related obvious issues affecting search, and explicitly differentiate. Do not make keyword ranking or content strategy claims unless the repository contains enough information to support them. Final report. This is where I think the project becomes more than a folder of AI prompts. Every individual audit should produce findings in a consistent schema, and the last prompt combines them. Something like finding. Oh, so the category is HTML, the severity is high, the confidence is high, and then the files with the line numbers. Problem. Navigation interactions are implemented using div elements with click handlers. Why it matters, the recommendation, an example, and severity could be with confidence separately. I really like separating those two because agents otherwise confidently report speculative garbage as a major defect. And I'd add one global instruction to every prompt. Do not modify the repository. This is an audit. Report findings and recommended changes only. That gives you a very clean workflow. And we're also not messing with people's websites, because what I don't want is to write prompts generically telling people you can use this prompt to change your code, or my prompt will fix your code. That's what I don't want. So that gives you a very clean workflow. Agent understands repo, audits, the human reviews the findings, the agent fixes only what the human approves. Because if you were enough of a grown-up to vibe code a website, you should be able to do the audit and decide, start learning how to have the judgment to read an audit and decide what to tell your agent, app, whatever, to fix, right? That's exactly the kind of agentic front-end workflow worth teaching, because you're not demonstrating AI can generate HTML. You're demonstrating how an experienced front-end engineer directs an agent to inspect code using actual engineering standards. Also, your repo was created today and is essentially at the perfect blank slate point for this. Right now, it has the README outline in the 5 categories, so there's nothing we'd have to unwind. I think project discovery is the first prompt we should write before fleshing out any of the 5 audits. Okay, so agreed. Please write the first prompt. I have feedback for the accessibility prompt. Accessibility is complex and it can have wild implications on otherwise perfectly functional websites. And I am not excusing bad accessibility. I'm not. But I want the emphasis to be on the web aim million. So if you don't know what the web aim million is, allow me to introduce you to the web aim million. So the web aim million is a project that is done by WebAIM, the webaim.org. Osler says, be sure to add make no mistakes at the end of your prompt. That way you'll get no mistakes. Cute. Okay, so I think they started in 2019. Basically, the WebAIM million audits the top 1 million websites, I think according to Google, every year, and it checks to see what the top accessibility errors are, and every year it's this like the same 6 things. So let's just take a look. 95.9% of home pages had detected WCAG 2 failures. This number increased from 94.8 in 2025, reversing a small trend of improvements each of the previous 6 years. Because only automatically detectable WCAG failures were considered, this suggests that the rate of full WCAG 2 A and AA conformance was certainly lower than 4.1. So here are the top 6 problems, and it's the same every year. 83.9% of the top 1 million website homepages had low contrast text. 53.1% had missing alt text for their images. 51% had missing labels for their forms. 46.3% had empty links. So think of, I mean, often we see like a link of maybe a social media link where it's an icon or an SVG. There was no text to go along with that. Empty buttons. Certainly we see buttons with, you know, like a submit button with an arrow and there's no text to go along with that. And there's the missing language attribute, which is like literally HTML, or isn't it like lang equals English or whatever your language is? So missing language. So it's the top 3 things. So I'm going to give this link because to me, think about this. If these websites, all million of these websites, or whatever it is, 95.9% of these million websites corrected these 6 things, think how much better of a place the internet would be, how much more accessible the internet would be. So let's put emphasis on these like really basic things. To me, they're basic. On the web aim million. Let's see what ChatGPT has to say. Yes. I'll carry that accessibility direction forward. For that prompt, we'll emphasize the kinds of high frequency, high impact issues surfaced by the Web A1,000,000 rather than treating every theoretical accessibility concern as equally urgent. Because accessibility is extremely complex. Things like ARIA labels are way overused. Semantic markup, you could use semantic markup and instead you're using arias and rules and things like that. Let's just concentrate on the high level things to not scare people off, right? So here's our first prompt. Let's also, well, we'll have Codex write the README. Yeah, we'll have Codex write the README at the end. So this is going to be called Project Discovery. I'll close this. So what was the proposed structure here? Prompts. Prompts. Got it. And then we'll say 0 project discovery.md. Okay, so we're going to read this prompt. I think it's going to repeat a lot of what we just read, but prompt 0, you are auditing an existing website. There we go. You're auditing an existing website or web application repository. Your first task is to understand how the front end is built before performing any code audit. Do not modify any files. Goal: determine whether this project is appropriate for a front-end audit focused on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, accessibility, and technical SEO. This audit is intended for projects whose rendered front end is fundamentally built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The project may use vanilla, a framework, a build tool, server-side templates that ultimately render HTML. Server-side technology does not automatically place the project outside of the scope of this audit. Framework boundary: determine whether the front end is primarily implemented using a JavaScript UI framework or application framework such as these. If the front end is primarily built with one of these frameworks, stop the audit after completing the discovery report. Clearly state that the project is outside the intended scope. Do not attempt to convert the application to vanilla. Do not assume the presence of Node, NPM, TypeScript, Vite, or another build tool means the project is framework based. Determine how the actual front end is implemented. So inspect the repository. Okay. So here's all of this. Get the build and development tooling. I love this, that it's an audit. Because how many people are vibe coding or prompt engineering their websites and not even really understanding what they're getting? Generated and vendor files, identified files or directories that should normally be excluded from direct source code auditing, including such things as node modules, the build output, compiled assets, blah, 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 discovery report, audit suitability, state one of, in scope with caveats, out of scope, explain why, front end summary, HTML source, CSS source, JavaScript source. Okay, I think we get the gist. Rules: do not modify any files, do not refactor code, do not install dependencies, do not upgrade packages, do not make architectural recommendations yet, do not perform the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, accessibility, or SEO audits yet, do not infer a framework solely from package names or build tooling. Base conclusions on the repository contents. Keep the report focused on information needed for the later front-end audits. Okay. What's next? So I especially like the in scope with caveats option. A WordPress theme, Laravel Blade site, Astro generated site, or weird Vite powered, am I saying this? Vite powered vanilla project may need some explanation without being rejected outright. Great. What's the next prompt? Okay, so I'm not going to read all of these. We will glance at them because we actually want to do the audit on some of our projects. We want to see what the result of this is. And then this is what I'm going to demo on Thursday during the LinkedIn Live. This is a long one. Okay. Maybe we do need to take a look at this. I'm just, I'm getting tired of just spending 2 hours reading AI prompts on stream. But I get it. This is our life now, folks. Okay. Audit the project's HTML and server rendered HTML templates. Goal, evaluate the quality, semantics, structure, maintainability, and correctness. The primary question is, does this project use HTML elements according to their intended meaning and behavior? Prefer native HTML semantics over generic containers, ARIA, CSS, or JavaScript when native HTML already provides the required structure or interaction. Scope, audit areas, semantic landmarks, heading structure, native interactive elements, links, buttons, forms, images and media, lists, tables, IDs and relationships, HTML validity and nesting, excessive markup, ARIA and native HTML, I do this all the time. And I stand by it. We also are going to have to include something about how, and maybe it doesn't need to be it could be part of the README where the human, we need to just place emphasis on the fact that the human is the final authority and the final judgment of what gets changed or updated, right? Type, I do type. That's what I do, is I do type button. I was like, why does this look weird to me? Okay. Osloy says, I've been pronouncing VITE to rhyme with feet. I've heard other people pronounce it that way too. Veet. Okay. See, I was putting a hard I, vite, based on the spelling, but it's veet. Got it. Okay. Finding criteria do not report every stylistic preference as a defect. Severity, the output, and the rules. Okay. And this is, what are we calling this again? This is just the HTML audit. Okay, so this is one HTML audit. We need to move along, Angela. We can't read all of these. Okay. Next prompt. Honestly, we're probably better off reading the report, right? I think we get the gist. And the report is the report itself is going to have more value. It's suddenly occurring to me that I'm really going to expose myself. I'm exposing myself by asking Codex to audit my own project. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I really hope that it's good results, right? CSS audit. Okay. The next one, the JavaScript audit, is the JavaScript audit. And I think that one should be particularly aggressive about detecting JavaScript that simply should not exist because HTML or CSS already provides the behavior. I mean, I agree with that. So, okay, great. Please write the prompt. Okay. A long one. Okay. 3. This is the JavaScript audit. Okay, the next one is the accessibility audit, and that's where I'd shift the structure noticeably, lead with the WebAIM million failure categories, prioritize common or high impact problems, and explicitly avoid turning the audit into an exhaustive theoretical WCAG scavenger hunt. Yes, I don't want to do that. We gotta, we're here to attract more people into front-end development, not scare them away, right? Um, this looks like a WCAG scavenger hunt to me, doesn't it? Oh, no, it's saying avoid accessibility over engineering. Do not recommend complex accessibility implementations when a simpler native solution exists. Do not turn every theoretical WCAG edge case into a required engineering change. Do not recommend custom ARIA widgets when native HTML works. Excessive focus management, excessive live regions, redundant accessible names, unnecessary tab index, redundant ARIA. Okay. Maybe it's not so bad. Well, curious to see what the result is by auditing my own. So, this version makes the WebAIM Million the front door to the audit, not just a citation buried somewhere in it. That seems exactly right for what you're building. In the 2026 study, those 6 recurring errors account for 96% of all detected errors, while WebAIM also explicitly warns that automated testing cannot establish overall accessibility or conformance. I also deliberately made ARIA restraint a major principle. The 2026 report found that ARIA on 82.7% of home pages and an association between greater ARIA usage and more detected errors, WebAIM is careful not to claim ARIA itself causes those errors. That nuance belongs in an agent prompt because otherwise an agent can very easily fix accessibility by spraying ARIA everywhere. Okay. And then I think the final, there's 2 more. There's SEO. Great. I think the next prompt is SEO. I want a lighter touch on this as well. SEO is complex. SEO is complex, and I have an organic approach. I think good, accessible markup makes a huge difference. Okay, so I'd make the SEO prompt explicitly technical and structural, not a content marketing or keyword strategy audit. The underlying philosophy can be clean semantic markup, crawlable content, sensible metadata, good accessibility, and no obvious indexing barriers. What this audit should not do: keyword research, keyword density analysis, backlink analysis, competitor analysis, content gap analysis, domain authority scoring, ranking predictions, search volume analysis, content marketing strategy, conversion rate optimization, local SEO strategy, paid search recommendations. Do not recommend rewriting natural content around keywords without a user-provided SEO strategy. Do not claim that a particular technical change will improve rankings. Search ranking depends on many factors outside this repository. Finding criteria. When report findings when they create a meaningful problem involving these things. Okay, here's our ranking system. Okay, audit findings rules. I think the line "good SEO begins with a well-built website" captures your approach nicely. This prompt is really asking whether the site gives search engines a clean, understandable document, not whether somebody has successfully gamed Google. Yes. Okay, so this is 5. This will be the SEO audit. Okay. Okay. What's the final prompt? Now we can get started. The final one should be the final report, the synthesis prompt. Its job is to combine the previous audits, deduplicate overlapping findings, and produce a prioritized implementation plan without changing code. So we've got final front-end audit report. The goal is to produce one concise, prioritized report that tells the developer what is working, what should be fixed, what matters, where findings overlap, what requires manual verification, what can reasonably wait. The final report should synthesize the previous audits rather than simply concatenate them. So here's the primary principle: prioritize findings by practical impact. Deduplicate findings, resolve conflicting recommendations, and then we have our ranking and scoring system. An executive summary, provide a concise overview of the front-end implementation. We've got project architecture, what the project does well, and the findings with the recommendations. Quick wins, I like that, quick wins. Okay, so this is the final report. I like it. Final report. Final, I think this should just be final report. Yeah. Okay. So we've got project discovery, HTML audit, CSS audit, JavaScript audit, accessibility audit, SEO audit, final report. Let's just have it write a README. Great. Can you also write a README? Oh, I should have, well, let's see what it comes up with. I have some ideas for things that I think should be included. Okay. Front-end audit is a collection of reusable prompts for auditing websites built primarily with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The prompts are designed to be used with coding agents such as Codex, Claude Code, or similar tools that can inspect a repository. The goal is not to automatically rewrite a project. The goal is to help an agent examine the front end, identify meaningful problems, and produce a practical report that a developer can review before making changes. What this audit covers: the front end audit focuses on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, accessibility, and technical SEO. It is intended for projects where the browser-facing front end is fundamentally, hold please, it is intended for projects where the browser-facing front end is fundamentally HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It can include all of these things. What this audit does not cover: front-end audit is not intended as a framework-specific audit for applications primarily built with React, Next, Vue, Nuxt, Angular, Svelte, SvelteKit, Solid, Ember, similar component-driven JavaScript frameworks. The first prompt performs project discovery and determines whether the project is within scope. The presence of Node, NPM, Vite, TypeScript, Tailwind, or another build tool does not automatically mean a project is out of scope. Here's how it works. Run the prompts in order. So I feel like what would we want to do? Would we want to run one prompt at a time, or would we tell it? That's the other thing, is we need to tell it to do an output, right? Okay, so here's our README. Wonderful. Will probably have feedback on the README after I have a chance to like really sit down and read the README. Here's what I want us also to do though. Okay, I think this also gives the repo a useful identity beyond heuristic prompts. Audit first agent workflow for generated or unfamiliar front-end code. Okay, I think that we should write a prompt to just run all of the prompts, but we need to specify an output folder where all the reports get put. Okay, so let's do that now. Okay. I think we need to talk about how the prompts are done. Since we're not changing code, I think we can say run these. Well, how many is it? It's technically 7. Run these 7 prompts and put the reports in an like output folder. Or something like that. Like they don't need to be run one at a time, right? Since the repo is an audit tool, the workflow should produce artifacts, not code changes. I'd make that explicit and standardize. Each prompt writes one markdown output. Each prompt writes one markdown report. All reports go into an output directory. The final report reads the earlier reports and synthesizes them. Source code remains untouched. But what if you fork this repo and you audit multiple websites? You would probably want to put a folder inside the output folder with the name of the thing that you're auditing, right? Then each prompt gets a consistent instruction near the top, like write the completed report to, do not modify any project source files. And for discovery, write the completed report to, and for the final one, and I think there's one more subtle improvement. Tell each later prompt to read the discovery report first rather than relying on conversational memory. Yes. For example, prompt 2 could begin read output. Yeah, read the output from the previous prompt before beginning the audit. Or are we just asking it to read the discovery report? Okay, so every prompt has to read the discovery report first before performing that particular audit. So for example, prompt 2 could begin read output project discovery before beginning this audit. Use it to determine which CSS source files should be inspected and which generated or vendor files should be excluded. Then prompt 4 could additionally say, you may reference previous audit reports where helpful, but perform the accessibility analysis independently and do not assume a previous finding is correct without verifying it against the source. That makes these much more portable between agents and sessions. I'd also consider telling the agent not to overwrite existing reports silently. That's probably what you want for repeatability, no versioning complexity. And in the README, I changed the usage section to something more concrete. Running the audit. I think this is better than making the user manually copy and paste agent responses someplace. The agent already has file system access, make the deliverable actual files, and conceptually it becomes, yes. Okay, so hang on, there's another step here though, running the audit. There is no running the audit. What this audit covers, what it does not cover, how it works. I think running the audit should go here. Run the 7 prompts in order. Each prompt writes a markdown report to the output directory. There's a lawnmower right outside my window and it's really distracting. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but it's driving me crazy. Okay. Each prompt writes a markdown report to the output directory. So here's the other thing. Let's say someone forks this repo and runs multiple audits on multiple projects. I think Codex or Claude or whoever should make a folder in output naming the project, then put the reports in that folder. Yes. I'd structure output like this and make prompt 0 responsible for establishing the output folder name. Something like determine a short file system safe project name. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We haven't done this yet. But we're going to do it now. Remember how this past weekend I said, I will make the changes and commit myself because I don't want ChatGPT to be a contributor on the repo? You know what? I think it's pretty obvious that ChatGPT is a contributor to this repo. Just because I'm doing the commits doesn't mean that it didn't do the work. So let's just update this, push it to Git, and let's have ChatGPT make all of these changes because we now have to add additional language to each of these prompts and the README plus this thing about naming the folder for the project. Let's just have ChatGPT do it for us. Adding the audit prompts. Okay. The repo is up to date. Can you please add and commit the language about naming the project for the output folder and the additional language for each prompt about reading the discovery document first. I'll update the repo in place, keeping the changes limited to the README and the 7 prompt files. project scoped output folders plus an explicit instruction for every audit prompt to read the discovery repo first, then I'll commit just those changes. Oh boy. ChatGPT is officially going to be a contributor. That's okay. Oh, okay. I've got the exact change set now. I'm making prompt 0, establish a stable project folder, and record it in, can't read today, record it in the discovery report. Prompts 1 through 6 will explicitly read that discovery file first and write back into the same project specific folder. The README will document the multi-project layout. Allow ChatGPT to use GitHub. Sure, just why not? Um, hopefully I think we'll actually have time to see this in action. No, we will. We're not leaving till we see this working, because this is what I am planning to do on Thursday. So, sorry I don't have a way to entertain you in between all of this. I fail to think of that sometimes. What am I going to do in between? Is there anything that we should Google? Does anybody have anything on their list of things to Google? Let me see here. Osloy says, I heard a little bit of something. Oh, the lawnmower. But only when you spoke. Could not tell it was a lawnmower. Think your computer is doing some audio filtering. Sounds good by the time it gets to me. Okay. Maybe jazz hands? Spirit hands. Is it jazz hands or spirit hands? That's from Bring It On. Jazz hands. I think that's from Bring It On. Bring It On. Right? Spirit fingers, right? Spirit fingers. The iconic spirit fingers scene from Bring It On features the quirky choreographer Sparky Pilastri introducing his, yes, Spirit Fingers. I wish I could play this. This is such a good movie. I think this is a good movie. Why is this taking so long? Do I need to like... I can feel it. It's not a contributor yet. But I had somebody leave me a comment. I did a short about, because I had been talking this past weekend about not wanting ChatGPT or Codex to be a contributor on the repo. And so what was the comment that somebody left me? Hang on. Well, let's see here. The comment was, it was snarky. Here it is. You don't want ChatGPT to appear as a contributor because you probably realize it's a red flag for people that don't like slop-coded garbage. And I was just like, sure, we'll go with that. Why not? So I thought that was a funny comment. I mean, I guess if that's your only experience with AI writing code, yeah, there's a fair amount of slop-coded garbage out there, but also there's some good stuff out there too. So as I was saying, maybe you could go look at some of the content that was just created while waiting for the latest thing. Oh, what's my favorite topic to see when I'm doom scrolling? What's my favorite topic to see when I'm doom scrolling? Um, I don't know how I ended up with a lot of cats in my Instagram reels. I don't own a cat. I have owned cats in the past. Um, I like cats. I wouldn't say I love cats, but every once in a while I see a particular kitten in a reel and I'm like, "Oh, should I get a cat?" No, don't get a cat. I definitely am a dog person. I prefer dogs, but I have moments where I see cats in my feed on Instagram Reels and I do like those. Um, I get a lot of technology, a lot of development stuff in my feed, and am kind of I scroll past that kind of quickly. I'm like I'm just like, no. I'm here for entertainment. I don't always feel entertained by development related content, which is why I have such a hard time making development related content. As much as I enjoy making development related content for YouTube, it feels different on Reels because Reels feels like entertainment to me, not a place where I want to listen to software engineers talk about technology. So I just have a hard time making that type of content for Reels. Um, yeah. Well, I'm trying to think, what else do I really like? I definitely like seeing cooking and meal prep. I like seeing, I don't know. It's so easy to change the algorithm on Reels. You can like one thing and then just spiral down that rabbit hole and then you're like, I got to get out of this. And I search something out that's a little lighter and a little easier to deal with and I can instantly change the algorithm on Reels, which is why I like it so much. So what I like seeing just depends on the day and depends on my mood. Yeah, it's a good question. Interesting. So this did not add. How is ChatGPT not a contributor if it committed? Let's ask that question. Okay, first of all, let's look at our prompts. So for example, the HTML audit. So it put all the information in here. Wait, let's look at the, is it under agent? Hang on. How is it not a contributor? Wait. How is ChatGPT not the contributor? How is ChatGPT not the contributor if you're the one committing to my repo? Committing to my repo. Just curious. Because GitHub's idea of a contributor is tied to commit authorship account attribution, not who intellectually produced the changes. Okay. In this case, I used your connected GitHub account to write directly to the repository. The connector authenticated as you, so GitHub sees commits made through your account, not a separate ChatGPT GitHub identity. Git commits distinguish between the author and the committer, and GitHub links contribution credit to identities, emails associated with GitHub accounts. So conceptually, you, repo owner and authenticated GitHub identity. Me, agent operating with permission through your connection. GitHub, Angela made these commits. There isn't a ChatGPT GitHub account being inserted as an author or co-author. I misunderstood how that works. If we were using, I totally misunderstood how that works. That's on me. If we were using a workflow where commits were authored by something like ChatGPT, and that email belonged to an actual GitHub account, then GitHub could attribute them separately. Likewise, Git supports co-authored by trailers, but contribution credit still depends on that co-author identity corresponding to a GitHub account or email. And frankly, your current attribution is probably the sensible one for this project. You designed the project. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I misunderstood how that worked. I saw a reel where someone used an agent to commit, and that agent was a contributor. Whoops, I spelled that wrong. That can absolutely happen. The difference is how that agent is configured to author commits. If the agent commits using its own bot or service identity, for example, a GitHub app, bot account, or a distinct author email tied to an account, GitHub can show that identity as a contributor. Some tools also add a co-author trailer, which can surface a second contributor. What happened here was different. The GitHub connector wrote through your authenticated GitHub account. Okay, this makes this workflow even better because I would never need Codex to do the commit for me. I can always do the commit myself because Codex is always working locally. But now I can absolutely have ChatGPT in the browser make these changes for me because it's not a contributor. So I love this even more. This is even better than I already thought it was. So, hang on. I already checked. Your commit was documented as me. Nice. I'm not complaining. Oh, whoops. Let's go back. Okay. We love that. Okay, we're finally done. So let's run our audit once and for all. Let's make, we'll make an output folder. Oops. We're going to make an output folder. Output. And for the love of the traveling Mary, let's get this show on the road. Let's get our codex pulled up. We're going to go a little over today, but that is just fine. Okay, so I think we want to do a new project, and we're going to call it Frontend Audit. And then we'll add, here's our projects. Let's do our coffee but no tea website. This is a couple projects ago, but we'll start with this. Well, actually, maybe. Okay, so wait a second. How do we specify this? So what's how it works? Running the audit. Run the 7 prompts in order. Each prompt writes a markdown report to the output directory. So wait a second. What project are we actually? You can't add 2 projects. So if we add the entire projects directory, then Frontend Audit and Coffee are like sibling projects. So let's do that. So here's the entire projects directory. Oh, we can add folders. We can add multiple folders. Well, let's do that. So we'll add Frontend Audit. And then we're going to add, we'll add the coffee, but no tea. Create project. Can you add folders at some other time? Probably. Okay. All right, so what do we want to tell it to do? So I think we want to say running the audit. Run the 7 prompts in order. So I feel like we have to say what we're actually going to tell it to do. We're starting with how it works. Run the 7 prompts in order. Each prompt writes a markdown report to the output directory. The audit prompts must not modify. After all 7 prompts have run, the output directory will contain. Hang on. Where's the part where? Okay. I added a project to audit and front-end audit to codex. Now I need to tell codex to do the audit. You can keep the instruction to codex very simple because the audit repo now contains the actual workflow. Use the front-end audit project to audit the website project I added to this workspace. Run all 7 prompts in the front-end audit prompts directory in order, starting with the project discovery. Follow the instructions in each prompt exactly. So this is what we want to run. How it works running. Run the 7 prompts in order. So I'm going to do this. So I feel like we need to say add this project and the project to audit to codex and use this prompt to start. But I don't feel like this should be buried on line 75. I feel like running the audit should be literally first. Use the front-end audit project to audit the website project I added to this workspace. All right. I don't see the other project here though. It told me to, it had me add 2. Right? You guys saw that where I added 2. Let's see if it asks for the name of the other project. Oh, it is. Why isn't it showing that? Oh, it is when I hover. Okay. I'm so glad we're doing this as like a dry run. Okay. I'll treat front-end audit as the audit framework and identify the added website through prompt 0. I'll read the project instructions and all 7 prompts first, then run them sequentially without changing the website source. Prompt 0 identifies the website as coffee, a small static HTML, CSS, JavaScript site. So it is in scope. I'm now using that discovery boundary to inspect only its authored pages, style sheet, and script. Design source files, images, get metadata, and normalize.css are reference vendor material rather than primary audit targets. The strongest source-backed issues are now clear. The mobile menu is not a complete keyboard focus pattern and disappears entirely if JavaScript fails. Every page repeats 4 placeholder social links. Page metadata is thin. And the visible copy contains unresolved placeholder location contradictions. Okay, fair. The form labels, image alternatives, document language, landmarks, responsive grids, and native buttons are generally solid. Yes. I mean, there's definitely things where when I finish a project, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get to that. I'll do that later. Note to self, I'll take care of that. And I never do. So it's probably going to find a lot of stuff like that. Um, yeah, this is exciting. This is exciting. I'm glad that I decided to do this. I think that this is going to end up being my first agent, a way to audit front end projects. Because here's what I'm picturing. I don't have to picture it. I'm already seeing it on social media. I mean, that is content that I do tend to pay attention to when I see it pop up in Reels, which is that I see somebody talking about the fact that they are not a developer, they don't work in technology, but they built a website, they vibe coded, prompt coded, whatever, prompt engineered a website, but they don't really know what they're doing. They don't exactly know how to fix the thing that they got. Yeah, I don't know. This is so cool. Okay, so are we ready to go? Okay, completed all 7 audits for the in-scope coffee static website. Reports are in Output Coffee, including the consolidated final front-end audit report. Key results. The front end is fundamentally sound and needs targeted fixes, primarily mobile menu resilience, focus management, placeholder social links, unfinished location, content copy, and missing metadata descriptions. Totally fair. The website's project source code was not modified. The existing front end audit .readme change was left untouched. I didn't commit after I made that change. So, okay. Let's check her out. Oh boy. Okay, so here's our output and here's our coffee project discovery. Okay, so in scope, this is a fairly short document. In scope, front end summary, 4 static documents, index plus about, contact, and menu are served directly. Each page loads a shared reset, a shared authored style sheet, Google Fonts, and 1 deferred script. There's no templating or build step. Repeated header and footer markup is copied onto each page. So here's the source. Here's the CSS, style.css, normalize.css. There's no preprocessor, CSS framework, module system, or build time CSS. JavaScript, script.js, deferred vanilla JavaScript for the responsive menu, copyright year, and contact form setup. There are no browser, package dependencies, modules, bundlers, inline scripts, or jQuery. The contact form submits to FormSpree. The About page embeds YouTube. Google Fonts is loaded from Google. Build and tooling, no package.json. Audit exclusions. Yep, there's Git, DS store. These are all like Git ignore. Some of these things are. Important caveats. Shared markup is duplicated across all 4 pages, so 1 defect may be site-wide. Fair. Runtime behavior involving FormSpree, YouTube, Google Fonts, and Google Maps cannot be fully established from source. No deployment URL or server configuration is provided, limiting canonical redirect header and live indexing checks. The audit should cite editable source, not design artifacts. Okay. HTML. The documents use valid-looking HTML structure, native controls, landmarks, headings, lists, associated form labels, and descriptive image alternatives. The principal HTML defect is the site-wide set of non-navigating social anchors. Secondary concerns are unexplained new browsing context and repeating footer structures that are semantically over-labeled as complementary content. Findings. High, medium, low, informational. Okay, findings. Social links are placeholder fragment navigations. Severity, medium. Confidence, high. Okay. Problem. Each footer contains 4 genuine looking social anchors whose href, oh, I forgot to add the links. That's why. Only navigates to the top of the current page. Why it matters. Okay, the controls communicate navigation, but they do not reach the named destination. So here's why this kind of an audit might be a good thing. Because if I missed something, like filling in the links for the social anchors in the footer, the audit would point out all of the things that I forgot to do just as a way to like round out my project. So here's me thinking that I'm writing a set of prompts for people who are vibe coding their projects and they don't know what to do or how to fix their things. But it could just be like a QA step for me and my own projects and all the things that I just didn't notice, because when you build a project, you're thinking of like a million different things. You're thinking of you're thinking of like your deployment and your this and your that. And there's just 5 million things that you overlook because you're thinking, because it's like you're the only person working on it. This could literally be like a QA audit for anybody, as to just catch the things that you forget about as you build, right? I know that seems obvious, but it's kind of just clicking for me. Recommendation, use the real profile service URLs. Yeah, this is just like pointing out the things that I forgot, which is really good. Map links, okay, so what is this? Finding, new window links do not identify the context change. Problem, map links and the contact form use target blank. Only the form's nearby small print warns that the new tab opens. Map links do not. Oh, interesting. So it's calling target blank out in saying that you should warn people that a new window is opening. So this is where we need to include language. That, you know, it's okay for a human to decide something is or isn't important. Because I personally don't think that this is something that has to be done. Why it matters. Unexpected browsing context changes can disorient users and complicate back button navigation. Yeah, you know what though? No, disagree. I mean, I understand this, but this is an old way of looking at that. Recommendation, remove target blank. Nope. Yeah, this is a great example of why the humans are the final authority. Finding, footer columns misuse multiple aside elements. Okay, that's fair. Severity is low. Okay, let's keep going here. Recommendation, finding, content images omit intrinsic dimensions. Yeah, I disagree with that too. Severity low. I worked at an agency once where we would QA each other's work, and there was somebody who would not pass my QA if I didn't have a width and a height on image, so on image elements, and I still disagree with that shouldn't be required and you don't need it. Problem, authored image elements do not provide width and height attributes, including the many menu thumbnails. I don't think you need them. Although CSS supplies aspect ratios in several contexts, intrinsic dimensions let browsers reserve the correct space before CSS and image data arrive, reducing layout movement and improving resilience. I just think that that's an old way of doing it. It's not a responsive, that's not the responsive web. Malik is giving me the 2-hour mark, and we're going to keep going. Thank you, Malik. Thank you. We're going to push through. We're not going to do more audits. We're just going to keep looking at this one. And this is going to inform any changes that I want to make to this over the next 2 days before Thursday. So I'm really glad that we're doing this. Okay, positive findings. Every page declares a doc type, language, char set, viewport title, and one main landmark. Primary navigation uses ordinary anchors. Menu actions use native buttons with accessible names. The contact controls have unique IDs, associated labels, appropriate types, and an explicit submit button type. Images consistently include alt. Lists and menu entries use coherent native structures. No duplicate IDs or invalid nested interactive controls were found. Well, thank goodness. Okay, let's see what it says about my CSS. Let me see here. The single authored style sheet is logically grouped, uses small custom property palette, low specificity selectors, modern grid flexbox, fluid type, and coherent breakpoints. There is no important escalation. The main risks are the JavaScript dependent mobile navigation presentation and motion without a reduced motion alternative. Rendered, contrast, and reflow still need browser verification. Findings: 0 high, 1 medium, 1 low, 1 informational. Okay, that's what that means. Got it. Finding: mobile navigation is hidden unless JavaScript changes a body class. I thought that was a good way to do it. How else would you do that? Okay, so at 1024 pixels and below, navigation is hidden and moved off screen. It becomes available only when JavaScript adds menu active. Why it matters. If the script fails, is blocked, or loads late, all primary navigation disappears behind a button that cannot operate. CSS therefore makes core navigation depend on JavaScript. Use a progressive enhancement marker set by JavaScript and hide or collapse navigation only when scripting is known to be active. Keep ordinary navigation visible in the no script state. Okay. That's good to know. I mean, it makes sense. It seems obvious now that I'm reading that. That's interesting. Okay, new finding. Interface motion has no reduced motion alternative. Yeah, I guess I did know that. Links controls the off-canvas navigation and the map, zoom, animate for 300 milliseconds, but the style sheet has no prefers reduced motion override. That's fair. That's fair. Okay, finding: rendered, contrast, and focus visibility need browser confirmation. Informational. Problem: text and controls are layered over translucent backgrounds and a hero image. Focus frequently shares hover styling, and ordinary links make their underline transparent on focus, though the user agent outline is not explicitly removed. Why it matters. Final contrast depends on composting and image pixels. Focus visibility depends on browser defaults. Static CSS alone cannot establish the rendered results. Recommendation: measure representative rendered combinations and verify a clearly visible focus indicator in supported browsers. Add explicit focus visible outlines if defaults are inconsistent. Okay. Positive findings: the cascade is restrained. No ID selectors, no important, and no long specificity chains. Grid flexbox layouts collapse at content relevant breakpoints and images are responsive. Color tokens, box sizing, fluid typography, and shared component rules improve consistency. Form controls retain native focus outlines, and the visually hidden utility follows a conventional clipping pattern. Okay, good. Let's see here. Can you guys see me? It looks like, let's see here. Let me know in the chat if you can see me, because I think there's some issues. I'm seeing issues on the back end here. Hang on one second. Osloy says he can see me. Okay. There's a message here that says the chat was disconnected, so I was wondering if there's weirdness happening again. But I think it's okay now. Okay. Let's keep going. JavaScript audit. Oh boy. Summary. The 70-line deferred script is small, dependency-free, and uses safe DOM APIs. It guards optional page elements, uses native constraint validation, and avoids DOM injection, requests, secrets, or expensive handlers. Its important weakness is incomplete focus state handling in the off-canvas menu. The CSS also makes primary navigation unavailable when JavaScript does not run. Findings: 0 high, 2 medium, 1 low, 0 informational. Okay, so we know it doesn't like how I'm dealing with the menu stuff. Got it. Let's keep going. Primary navigation has no script fallback at small widths. That's interesting. I've literally never even thought of that. And I'm trying to think if I've ever worked on a project that had a no script fallback for mobile navigation if JavaScript wasn't enabled. I can't think of a single project where that is something. I'm going to do some research on that. It's never occurred to me, and I've never even once seen it discussed, which doesn't mean anything except that I just haven't seen it. So, okay. Let's keep going. Finding: menu code models two actions as an undifferentiated. So I think this is all about the navigation. Positive findings: the script is deferred, compact, and scoped with const and functions rather than mutable global state. Optional elements are checked before use, and text content and attributes are used instead of unsafe HTML injection. Native form validity is preserved. Submission work is limited to context fields and duplicate submit prevention. No third-party JavaScript dependency, async race, high frequency event, or front-end secret was found. I mean, it's a small site. These are all very small projects, but this is like good that we're not doing everything wrong, right? Okay, accessibility audit. Oh boy. Source. Source shows a good semantic baseline. Language is declared. Images have alternatives. Controls have names. Form labels are associated and native elements are used. The highest impact barrier is the small screen menus, incomplete focus behavior, and lack of JavaScript failure fallback. A skip mechanism and reduced motion handling are also absent. Yeah, I haven't really been putting skip links or skip nav. I mean, I did in the last couple of projects, but it's very recent. So findings: 0 high, 2 medium, 2 low, 1 informational. 2 findings or items require rendered or manual verification. And then we've got the web aim million priority findings. Off canvas menu does not control focus or background interaction. Okay, another menu thing. Small screen navigation becomes unavailable when scripting fails. Pages lack a way to bypass repeated navigation. So a skip nav. We want to start implementing more skip navs. Finding: motion preferences are not honored. So we want to put in our prefers reduced motion media query. So we can start doing that. That's been on my radar. Finding: rendered contrast and focus visibility require verification. Informational. Problem: opacity and hero imagery prevent reliable source-only contrast conclusion. Yeah, because that site, let's pull it up. I know what it's talking about. So it's because of some of this opacity over top of this image, which I knew I was kind of pushing my luck doing that. Opacity and hero imagery prevent reliable source-only contrast conclusions. Focus styling sometimes depends on browser outlines, while hover focus rules remove link underlines. User impact: if the composites or default outlines are weak, low vision, and keyboard users may struggle to read or locate controls. Okay. Manual testing checklist. Okay. Positive findings: all documents declare English and all images have useful looking alternatives. Form controls have programmatic labels, correct types, autocomplete tokens, constraints, and a native submit button. Main navigation and actions use anchors and buttons rather than generic clickable elements. Landmarks, headings, lists, ARIA controls, ARIA expanded, and hidden decorative SVGs provide a strong baseline without excessive ARIA. So we're doing some things right. Okay, what's the final? Now the SEO, which I don't know if I have titles. I think it's going to call it the titles and the descriptions because I don't think that I've been particularly SEO focused. So let's see here. All 4 pages are static, indexable in source, use crawlable anchor navigation, meaningful titles, one clear main region, and coherent heading structures. No index or robots block is present. The largest weaknesses are missing descriptions and unfinished contradictory visible content. Placeholder social URLs are also false crawl targets because I forgot to add the links. Findings: 0 high, 2 medium, 1 low, 1 informational. Every page lacks a meta description. Yeah. Finding: placeholder, contradictory copy, obscure page meaning. Yeah, like lorem, there's some lorem ipsum text, I think, on there. Finding: placeholder social URLs. Yep, because they're all hashtags. I forgot to update them. Finding: deployment level indexing. Signals cannot be assessed. So this is informational, confidence low. Problem: the repository has no robots.txt. That's fair. No sitemap, canonical URLs, deployment domain, or server configuration. Yeah, yeah. So I sometimes skip some of those things. So you know what? But this is good because this puts all of this stuff back on my radar to make sure that I'm including these things. So let's keep going. Positive findings. Page content and navigation are present in static HTML and do not depend on client-side rendering. Titles distinguish home, about, contact, and menu. Each inner page has a descriptive H1 and organized H2, H3 content. Primary internal navigation uses normal relative anchors, and no source level, no index or crawl block was found. Images have descriptive alternatives, and main page regions use semantic structures. So okay, so I know there's the final report, but I'm having another thought. But let's keep going. Okay, front-end audit report, executive summary. The coffee front end is fundamentally sound and unusually easy to reason about. 4 static pages, 1 authored style sheet, and 70 lines of vanilla JavaScript. Its strongest areas are native HTML form labeling, image alternatives, crawlable navigation, restrained CSS. I love that. Restrained CSS and safe scripting. The primary risks are an incomplete mobile menu accessibility, progressive enhancement pattern, and unfinished site content navigation. Consolidated findings: 0 high, 4 medium, 3 low, 2 informational. Manual browser keyboard zoom contrast form and embed testing remains required. Project architecture: what the project does well. Priority findings, which, okay, this is kind of a repeat of everything. So, okay, I'm satisfied with this. I like this. So here's what I'm thinking. Because what we just designed here today is for somebody using an agent to build their own website, and they need to maybe do an audit. Even if you're not using an agent to build your own website, say you're just doing a vanilla build, you're new or you enjoy it like I do, and you want a way to audit or do like a QA. This is a great tool to do that and to get help from an agent to fix some of those things or fix them yourself, whatever you want. Wouldn't it be cool to do something like this where we're crawling the front end? So it's It doesn't have to exclude a project based on maybe being a React or a Vue or an Angular app, because the browser renders native HTML, native CSS, native JavaScript, right? Yeah. Can the chat, can you guys tell me in the chat if you guys can see me, because it says the chat is disconnected again. Stream health. It says stream is healthy. So I don't know. Okay. Well, that's a project for another day because I'm happy with what we did here. Yeah. Oswald says, yeah, I can see in here. Okay. I'm getting messages on the back end that says chat is disconnecting. So that's okay because I think I'm done. I'm done. I'm ready to go. Hey, do me a favor. Would you be so kind as to like this video? Subscribe if you haven't already. It helps the algorithm, helps get this pushed out to more people who might be interested in this type of thing, and it helps the channel grow. Come hang out with me this week on Thursday at noon Central Standard Time. Angela J. Holden is my handle over on LinkedIn. The whole point, the whole reason we did this today, created this audit, is because I want to show people on LinkedIn, the DIYers, the front end DIYers, if you will, the people using Claude or Codex to kind of like vibe code or prompt engineer websites for themselves. I want to teach them how to do audits and to learn how to make improvements in their sites. So, and I'm getting a message again that the chat is disconnected. So I don't know what's going on. And I apologize if you're trying to chat. Maybe we'll just go ahead and say that this is good for today. Thank you to everybody who came to hang out with me. Osloy, Gogo Elmo, Monique Robinson, Stamp Sack was here. Thank you to everybody who came to hang out. I appreciate you all. Osloy says it seems fine. Yeah, it's looking weird on my end. So, have a great day wherever you are. Hopefully I will see you on Thursday this week. I don't think I will be here on Friday. Come back this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We're going to start a new front end project, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And we'll take into account some of what this audit is pointing out. Maybe we'll do that research when we start our next front end project. Definitely have some WordPress coming. We'll get back to Jane Austen, but personally, I need a break from some of this prompt engineering and I just want to get back into some coding. So there's that. Okay, everybody, have a great rest of your day wherever you are, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.